Hey y'all, in this episode of Lawns Across America, I'm going to go way down the trail of looking at battery-powered tools and how the political landscape has changed some of the direction that some are going in, and then I give my advice on how they could bob and weave to stay alive. Additionally, we go into how is Bahia grass sod made and why do we sometimes find cow patties in it, as well as I talk about disease here in the late summer, and at the very end talk quite a bit more about seeding for my friends up north. There's something for everybody in this week's podcast, so put it on in the background and enjoy. What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thanks for coming back for yet another Lawns Across America podcast. Can you believe this? 3 in a row. It's not going to be quite 3 weeks in a row, but it'll be pretty close. Close enough, right in time for the big fall push. Last week did a full podcast on seeding. I'm not going to punish you with any more of that. We're actually going to talk a little bit about some news going on today, and then I'm just going to go through the Facebook group and look at questions that are being asked and kind of answer those straight up. That's originally what Lawns Across America was slated to be, was me, if you guys remember, I used to have a dial-in number, and we would take phone calls, and people would leave messages on the phone call, and then I would answer them. And I would love to get back to that, but I'm going to have to hire somebody to help me with that, because what would happen is folks would call in, they would leave a voice message with their question, but there'd be a lot of ums and ahs in there, and it would take a long time to take all those out. But I did that because I wanted the person not to sound ummy and ahy, right? And so that would take a lot of time. And then editing podcasts takes a lot of time as it is. And I'd have to do some research sometimes. It was all really fun. If I could get somebody to handle just the recordings, in other words, I go through and go, out of the 10 we got this week, here's 3 that I can answer, because I can't obviously answer everything, but here's 3 that I can answer. And then I had somebody that would edit out all the ums and ahs and get it down to the most clear and concise piece of that question. Might be able to pick that back up, but I think a good way to go over it starting now is to just go through Facebook and find questions that way, or things that are people there. And by the way, if you search on Facebook, if you search Lawn Care Nut page, I guess, it's the page that has my New Balance shoes at the top and the LCN oval logo. That is a public group. It's a private group, but it's free for anybody to join, or anybody can join it, I guess. All you got to do is just answer our questions, that you're going to be nice, you're not going to cuss at people, you're not going to be a racist jerk, that kind of stuff. Once you go through all that, then you can get into the group there. And we have a great group, man. A lot of people in there, very helpful. They really are patient with new folks, but they also enjoy getting into sometimes some more deeper conversations about things. There's a ton of questions going on in there and seeding, and people talking about their strategies, and it's really cool to see. So join up on that Facebook group if you wish. I'm very active in there. One of the things I've always, I guess the word is prided myself on, is that no matter how big our platform gets or our company gets, the Yard Mastery just crossed $60 million in sales lifetime. First revenue was 2019, so not too bad. And the bigger that gets, I'm still able to stay fairly accessible, especially on Facebook. I'm in the groups all the time. We have several groups, but that one with my shoes at the top, like I said, my New Balance stained up shoes and the oval LCN logo at the top, that's my official group that I'm in most days. So with that, let's start up with a little bit of news here, some interesting things. And you guys know I love to follow the robot mower business and what that's doing. And one of the better, how do I say this? One of the better quality robot mowers out on the market today is Kress. That's Yard Mastery is a Kress dealer. We haven't really done too much with it. But Kress is great when it comes to their robotics. And we've got them out at the Freedom Factory. We actually need to shoot a video on it. We just got flooded again. So every time I go out to shoot the full video, something happens, something's going on. But they work great. We got them out there. Brett had to dial them in. It took a little bit of time to get them dialed in because the Freedom Factory has some pretty unique challenges. But they do great. They do what they're supposed to do. They get to their area and they cut. And they do fine. And so we don't mind being associated with Kress that way. I had, at one point in my mind, I had this idea, this grandiose idea that we would be this giant robot dealer, right? Because I can see, as you guys know that have listened to this podcast for a while, you know that I'm a big believer in robotic technology. Now, I didn't say battery. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I'm a big believer in the robotic technology. And when I say that, I mean that I believe that robotic mowers in the next 5 years or so are going to take over about 50% of the market. I believe that'll happen in the next 5 years. And I've already seen it getting better and better, which I won't go into too much today. But I wanted to have a part of that. I was like, look, if I'm going to be able to if I can see this coming based on where I sit in the basically the focus groups that I have access to, that's my audience, my platform, what can I see going on? I want to be a part of that. And so I worked really hard to figure out a way to be able to sell robotics. Kress was one that was very easy. We could install a dealership here, and they work great. So it was perfect. However, I've just found that I need to stay within my lane. And what my lane is I create content about these things. I don't actually sell the hardware. That's a whole different business. And it's a business that, frankly, it's hard to make a profit. If you're an equipment dealer, and I'm not talking about me. I got some Kress equipment here, and I do e-commerce on the side. I'm talking about somebody that's an actual mower dealership. It's got to be hard. I've seen the margins, and I don't know how you guys make a living unless it's in service, unless you're like car dealerships. So here's how automotive dealerships work. They're extremely profitable in fixed ops, they call it. That's basically service and parts. That's where all their profit is. They don't make any profit. They're lucky to break even in new car sales. And then used really just depends on their buying strategy and their floor planning and how they hit. There's trends. So, and there's software for that. And so playing with used cars is almost like playing the stock market. There can't be any emotion involved. It has to be all based on data. And if you have the right used car manager right used car buyer who's doing that, and you're taking in the right trades from your new car sales, then you can make money in used. And a lot of dealers right now, just so you guys know, they're making almost all. If you're a Stellantis dealer over there, if you guys don't know what Stellantis is, no one does. It's CJDR, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and I'm still a guy that calls them Ram trucks, or calls them Dodge Ram trucks, not Ram trucks. I guess not. Anyway, Stellantis, that company, I'm surprised they're still in business, to be honest with you. They've abandoned a lot of things. Anyway, so if you're a Stellantis dealer, you're making all your money on used. You're trying not to bleed new, and your fixed ops is making up for it. And I'm assuming that OPE, outdoor power equipment dealers, are similar. I don't know that those dealerships would operate any differently, except they've got a different type of customer. They're not dealing with the public. They are in some cases, but they're mostly dealing with professionals who are running a business, and that business relies on that dealership. Whereas homeowners, people buying a car, you don't necessarily rely on your automotive dealership. You can go somewhere else to have it fixed or have the oil changed. You don't ever have to visit the dealership ever again unless you have a recall. Whereas professionals who are on the road daily, cutting grass, they need to have that dealer available if something breaks down. They can get a loaner while their stuff's being fixed. So there's a different kind of relationship there. But I would assume still that the profit margins are similar to what I said in the new car business. And so when it comes back to me, having only one small line, Kress, and one robot that I can sell, there's not enough volume currently to make it profitable. That's where it's at. And so I've realized that I need to stay in my lane, and my lane is content about the mowers. And so I've kind of gone back to that. Just so you guys know, last year, I think I did 3 or 4 robotic mower reviews, and I paid for almost all of them. I spent over $15,000 in robotic mowers last year, my own money. I didn't make that back getting 50,000 views. Trust me. But it was a learning experience for me. And so this year, I've not really done anything with robotics, haven't taken any demos until now. I took one this summer, and I didn't pay for it, because I'm not going to spend money on robots anymore when I can get them for free. I get a different company emailing me, almost all from China, every single day saying, hey, we got a new robot mower. Will you review it for us? And I turn almost all of them down. One of them I said yes, because I was very interested in that particular model just because of the reviews I'd seen on it. But anyway, I've learned that's where I'm better at, is doing the content. And that's where I have more fun. So back to Kress, though. Kress is very good quality unit. If you're looking to get a robotic mower, if you're listening to this and you just want one for your house, and there's a dealer near you, because they got to have their RTK antenna near you, If there is a dealer near you, it's an excellent option, and it's 100% hands off, literally 100%, because the dealer has to install it for you because they have this stick that only the dealer has that has to have the pilot house go on top of it when they outline the areas. And so they got to do all that for you, and you're going to probably pay an installation fee. But then there'll have to be follow-up, at least probably the next 1 or 2 days follow-up, because it's going to get stuck in different places. They might have to change no-go zones. They might have to remap areas, all of that. These are all things we've learned, right? It takes time. You have to revisit a site several times to really get the mower dialed in properly, because it's rare that you get the perfect site, you see? And so that's where all the profitability goes out if you have to have somebody continually running out to adjust the mower. And with Kress, the homeowner really can't help you too much. But again, what that does, what I think that advantage is it's the market out there right now that's like, I'm not interested in putting the thing together myself. I just hate mowing my lawn. And that's where I think the big market is. So right now, the most folks that are buying robots, they're buying ones like these ones from China that are direct, that you don't have to go through a dealer. You know, like the Segway, which is the one I'm reviewing now. I think Luba just came out with a newer model. You know, there's ones folks are just interested in it. They're tech type people. They don't mind getting through the learning curve. They're setting the thing up. They like tinkering in the app. That's what a lot of these folks are. They love to adjust it in the app. They'll adjust it to do different things in the app just to see why it does it and whatever. They're hands on, and that's your early adopter here, and that's the main sales. However, the secondary market will come in soon as all of those early adopters start getting these robots on their lawns. Their neighbors who are not the techie folks and hate doing lawn care. All of these people in common probably dislike lawns for the most part, dislike mowing anyway. But those neighbors who don't care about lawn care at all, and they don't want to tinker, and they don't want to deal with that, the Kress is the option for them, because they can get a high quality robot that's hands off. The dealer will take care of it for you. And so dealers are going to have to work on making that profitable. But just for me and my business and where I'm going, you know, we're a fertilizer company. We sell fertilizer to homeowners. That's our thing. I have specific programs that I create, and then I sell fertilizer to back up those programs, and then I educate my platform. I educate my folks on how to use those products. I mean, that's really what this platform is. Here's the philosophy I espouse for taking care of lawns. If you want to try it out. Here's all the products that I recommend. And by the way, I'm going to support you all along the way by being accessible on Facebook, by providing guides. You guys know I'm the guy that writes the free guides, right, to get out to you. And all of those guides are updated every year based on new questions we get from the new people coming in. That's kind of how that works. So that's how my platform works. And it just seems that installing robots here in Florida, actually installing robots within a 30-mile stretch in Bradenton here, there's just not a lot. There's not a lot of meat on that bone currently. Back to Kress now. So interestingly enough, though, I did get, and this goes back to more of the battery side of it, because there's such a difference in robotics. Even though robots run on batteries, all of these, not all, the company Kress they're really entering the marketplace and putting all of their marketing dollars into their equipment. You don't see a lot of advertising on the robotics. They're awesome, but I don't necessarily, and maybe I'm just missing it, but I do see a lot of advertising with the power equipment. I guess I shouldn't say that. The robots are probably everywhere. In every place that they advertise the power equipment, they have the robots there. Probably just the interest isn't in the robots yet. But they're definitely spending a lot of money getting their whole line out there. Their spread at GIE was incredible. They had probably one of the largest booths there. What's a booth cost at GIE, one that size? $100,000 maybe? $200,000? I don't know. But I also see Kress at, they were at the county fair. They had, they have the carver out there at the county fair using their tools. And so they're spending quite a bit of money. They sponsored other things too at the GIE. I don't know if it was some of the music or one of the things. Either way, they've just spent a ton of money marketing these battery-powered tools, honestly, to a group of people that despise battery tools. And so we've talked about this before. Is that the battery market has been politicized to the point where now, so 5 years ago, battery stuff was all at the GIE Expo. It's not what it was now. There's not as many players then as there are now, but all the big players were still there. Battery was the talk of the town. Toro had battery stuff out there. Ego was there. Greenworks was there. Ryobi, they were there. Milwaukee has good battery stuff. Makita has battery. All of the battery stuff was there 5 years ago. And the difference then was most people at the show would be like, oh, okay, I see that's battery stuff. Let's touch it. Let's see if it's gotten as good as gas yet. They'll put their hands on it. They're still skeptical. They love their gas because we're Americans, rah, 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 right? They love all that, but they'll touch the battery stuff. They'll see. Let's see. Nah, I'm not going to make the choice. They stay with their gas, right? And then they go on to the rest of the booth and they look at the gas stuff. They get their upgrades if they need them, whatever it is. By the way, just so you guys know, most professionals will buy what their local dealer offers. It's not like they're going to go to the GIE Expo and go, ooh, I really like them Spartan mowers. And the closest Spartan dealer is 300 miles away. They're not going to buy a Spartan. But anyway, it's still fun to go to the GIE and check it out, right? And just see what's there and make connections. If you are buying, you can actually talk to the folks that are the engineers behind the product. You can talk to the product manager. So it's good for all of that, right? But the battery stuff was there, and people thought it was cool or whatever. They watched it, they looked at it, but they didn't really make a lot of change. Now, 5 years later, it's politicized. Now what you have is you have people that downright can't stand the battery stuff because all it does is it's associated with them being told there's something they're going to be required to do whether they want to do it or not. And as Americans, we bristle. When you're going to tell me that you're going to force my business to make a change that I don't necessarily think needs to be made and actually could hurt my business, I'm going to bristle back at that. I'm not going to take that lightly. And so that's where you're at now. And so now, and I've seen this with the manufacturers. I talked to all of them. A lot of them are not pushing battery like they were. They're back to that 5 years ago. They're like, okay, we have it here. It's nice, but we're not putting it front and center necessarily, or it's not as much in your face, right? And so what you've had happen is you've had people that operators, I'll say older operators, which is the majority of, I think, lawn care operators in this country are over 40 probably. But either way, it's over 40 lawn care operators. Whereas before they would be like considering the battery, maybe they buy one piece of battery equipment to try it out, like a chainsaw or something, and they're like, okay, this is cool. Maybe they have some battery equipment at their house for their home. Okay, that's cool. They're kind of coming along, right? They're coming along. Now, all of a sudden, it's been politicized in the last 3 years, 4 years, and so now what you have is, nope, totally not going to touch it. You. That's where a lot of the over 40 landscapers are now. And I can't say I blame them, right? Just because California does something, what happens is, and this is something I talked about when I was at Jason Creel's conference earlier this year, the Lawn Care Life Conference, is that typically what you see when California starts making laws such as this, it's going to sweep across the rest of the country eventually. And so my message to them this year was, go ahead and start using robotics and batteries now so that when it does come to your state or your town and it's forced, then you're already ahead of that curve and you're not bitching about it. You're not complaining. You're already ahead. That was what my advice was. Now, does that say go out and change everything to battery today? No, but go ahead and go back to where you were 5 years ago where you're trying one or two pieces here and there for some specialty jobs. Maybe you put a robot out at one or two commercial properties where it saves you a little bit of time and you can see what I'm saying? So start to get down that road. Just start to look at it. But now I'm finding, depending what happens here in November, all of that could be put on hold for the next 4 years. It could go back to where it was 5 years ago, to where battery are not politicized anymore, and it's back to choice, right? And so now you have these companies, Kress would be one, and I don't have any insider information here. I'm just talking shit because this is fun, right? Fun for me to just sit here and talk shit. That's all I'm doing. So don't take any of this as fact or anything, but it's just me talking. And some of y'all might use some of my ideas as marketing. But you have a company like Kress that came in thinking on the idea that California's laws were going to sweep the country and we're going to be there to go ahead and get all the people that are, they don't say it this way, but the people that are forced to go battery will be their choice. And that's what California is. So California focusing, and I haven't talked to any California operators. I would like to. If you're a California operator and you want to come on the podcast, I'd love to talk to you. How do you feel about the battery that you were forced to go to it? Do you care now? Were you originally pissed off about it and then you started looking at the options and now it's cool, it's good? Or are you still pissed off about it? What have you discovered? Maybe the battery you've discovered is better because you've gone further down the road with it than pretty much anyone else. Something. But my assumption is that most of those, because they're red-blooded Americans out there in California too, they were not happy about it, but they made the switch, right? But nowhere else in the country did. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting the idea that California and whatever, and probably mostly out west where there's other laws like this, or they know they're coming very quickly, those folks have adopted just because they had to. But the rest of the country, it's been like a red stop sign. Whereas before, like I said, there was this consideration set. They're going that way. Not now. The rest of the country is in that FU mode, and they've completely stopped considering. So there's zero sales. Whereas there may have been the trickle sales across some of these areas. That red line has stopped it, and now it's zero sales. The trickle's gone to a zero. I'm guessing. All right. Why am I guessing all that? So check this out. So we got, this is from DJ Johnson at Kress. Now, this was sent out to all dealers. I don't see anything in here about privacy, so I guess we'll find out. Again, I'm not meaning this to be anything negative. I'm just talking about news. So DJ Johnson is the executive vice president. So I guess he's the top guy at Kress. I think I met him at Jason's conference. DJ, if you were there and I don't remember, I'm sorry. But you did give a bombastic speech if it was you, and it was very enjoyable. Dear Kress dealers, as a valued Kress dealer, I would like to provide you with a mid-year update on our business and organization. First, we are confident and enthusiastic for the future. Kress has unmatched innovation that allows the commercial landscaper to convert from gas to electric while remaining productive, lowering operating costs, and providing health and safety benefits for end users. Second, we are confident that we have the best dealer partners across the country with teams and relationships to help us sell the benefits of Kress products, battery, and charging systems. So great. All of the great things. Our stuff is great. It's unmatched innovation, all of these things, and we have the best dealers. Here he continues. Our collective hard work with you and our dealer partners with training events and trials has proven an effective approach in providing landscapers with proof that Kress is the clear choice for commercial landscapers to replace gas. We have achieved good progress with national and key regional accounts taking the initial steps toward conversion through the first half of 2024 and anticipate additional adoption in the coming months. All right, so they're saying that's all good, right? All right, he continues. We have seen success in converting landscapers to battery in areas with gas restrictions and bans, and we remain confident that battery adoption in these areas will continue to grow due to the host of other benefits that battery affords. To foster this growth, we have more directly focused our talent and efforts into these areas. Until we see a more rapid conversion pace elsewhere, we have reduced our sales territory footprint in certain parts of the U.S. that have been slower to adopt, and we'll be blending some territories into others or using inside service team to support our dealers in these specific areas. You see, I nailed it. They're concentrating on the areas where people are forced to switch. That's where the sales are happening, and there's literally no other sales happening anywhere else, or not enough to make a difference to the point where they're consolidating now, reducing sales force. They're kind of falling back. Man, with all the money spent the last 2 years too. Whew, that had to be a tough one to write, that email. Continues, we remain confident in the future of Kress for these simple reasons. Okay, so I'm glad you're confident, bro. Our technology and service are simply unmatched, and our dealers are the backbone for delivering our message. This has been our stance since launching Kress and will continue. I mean, okay. So that's it. So you can see they're shrinking back. And I don't blame them. You can't continue to bleed money like that when the rest of the country just doesn't want what you're offering, even if it is the best, right? All right, I want to talk just a little bit more about this and just look at some business and marketing ideas that I had, because for those of you listening, I know you listen for lawn tips, but all of you work in a business, maybe you own a business, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you one day want to own a business. So just listening to how this business operates and then taking some of my ideas, maybe you can learn something for your business. I hope so, whether you're in lawn care or not. One other thing I wanted to say real quick here is I'm talking about Kress because it's just something in the news today, but this could happen to any electric or battery-powered lawn OPE type company, right? And Kress, they are one of the best. If you look at their products, they're incredibly good quality. I don't think that is ever the issue. The issue is, like I said, the other things, the politicization of it, and then, yes, battery-powered stuff is a little bit more expensive right now, and it's also a change or an adjustment, and all of those things make it tough. I think we can learn a lot, though, from the car business. I worked in the car business for 6 years, and I actually worked in marketing. We used to do digital marketing for car dealers. We would also build and run and operate their websites, as well as all their digital advertising that went through that website and lots of other stuff. And so I understand the car business from that regard. I thought I would show something here. I follow a guy on Twitter, or X as it's called now, and he's called the Car Dealership Guy. And he will just post different things about the automotive industry and news and things like that. But one thing he'll do is he'll post up rates that he sees, because he's got this bird's eye view of the entire country instead of just one region or specific area or one brand. He has a bird's eye view of the entire country. And what he's posted here here's the best 0% APR deals for August. So that means you could finance one of these cars for 0% interest. Now just think about that. Now 0% interest, we got really accustomed to that in the later 2000s after the big crash of 2008. One of the ways that they were able to get buyers that were maybe upside down there, besides cars for clunkers, but one of the ways they might have been able to get some people that were upside down was to do this 0% financing. So that's like free money. If you're going to buy a car that, say, is $50,000 and you're going to pay 0 interest on that for 72 months, right, which is more than 5 years. We used to, by the way, 20 years ago, if you ever told somebody you were going to finance more than 5 years, they'd go nuts. Back when I was a kid, 3 years, 36 months was like, holy cow, that's the max. Now there's more than even 72-month payments now, or financing terms. But either way, 0% for 72 months, they're going to give you that $50,000 and you get to use it to buy your car, and you owe them 0 interest on it. All you have to pay back is the flat $50,000. That's it. That is free money. They're giving you that money for that 72 months or 6 years, and that's it. You can pay it back over the 6 years, but you don't have to pay any interest. That in today's economy is almost unheard of until now. You realize you hear about interest rates are very high right now for a lot of reasons. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I don't like the stock market and how all that stuff works, because of that, all these things are out of our control, because somebody pulls a switch or a lever somewhere or makes a decision on this or that. It affects all of us. I think it's all bullshit, and it starts to tick me off the older I get. But either way, interest rates are high right now. Like, you don't want to buy a house right now if you can help it, because the interest rates are like 8.2%. Imagine that, when just a few years ago you could get interest rates at 1 or 2%. And so, but again, all of that, how is that affected? I don't know. I think there's just people in Washington pulling strings and getting rich off of it. Right now, to get 0% financing, you have to realize that for an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, so an OEM is like Ford or GM or Stellantis, which is CJDR, right? Toyota. These are OEMs. For them to offer 0% financing on a car, that means they really need to get rid of it, because they're able to command much higher interest rates on everything else. The normal, I don't know what the normal interest rate on a car is right now for somebody with a 700 Beacon score or better. So yeah, I think auto loans, you could probably get a 5% auto loan right now if you have good credit. So you have to realize that these companies are willing to give up that 5% on $50,000, right? They're willing to give that up because they need to get rid of these cars, because the longer they sit, the more money they lose. That's how I'm telling you, auto dealerships really, they work on floor planning. That's the longer these cars sit, the more they lose. Anyway, so here are the cars, and I know I ramble a lot, but you're going to hear one thing in common about these. So here are the cars right now in the United States of America that you can get 0% financing on. And I think I've already proven that that's pretty rare right now. There are 16 cars listed here. Ready? Toyota BZ4X, electric. Ford Mach-E, electric. Lexus RZ, electric. Subaru Solterra, electric. I can keep going down. Of the 16 cars in the United States right now that you can get for 0% financing, 10 of them are electric vehicles, or EVs. And then 2 of the gas are Lincolns, which nobody buys Lincoln anymore since they stopped advertising with Matthew McConaughey. And then Mitsubishi, which I didn't even know there were Mitsubishi dealerships anymore. So 2 of them there. So what I'm trying to say is, out of the 16, all right, 10 are electric. Why are electric vehicles right now at 0%? Because lots across the country. There's Toyotas, Fords, Lexus, Subaru, Volkswagen, another Ford, the Ford Lightning, a Kia Niro EV is on here, and then I think probably the sister, the Hyundai Ioniq, that's probably the same thing as a Niro, that's electric. all of these companies, okay, Kia has a couple on here, Kia EV9, Kia EV6, all of these companies they went all in, very similar to how we were talking about Kress earlier, or some of these other companies that are coming in. They realize that the laws in America are starting to shift, and the political arena or census or whatever you want to call it, regime, it switched to push people to electrics, okay? And so what did all of these OEMs do? They started ramping up, Ford, Chevy, GM, they started ramping up their production and their inventory on electric vehicles. And then what happened? Well, what happened was it got politicized to the point where American car buyers also got that FU attitude and said, we're not buying this stuff, okay? But also, they also found out there just wasn't a demand for EVs. What the issue or the challenge in the automotive industry, the extra deceiving factor there or data point was Tesla. Tesla's been around for a long time. It's a storied company. It's owned by Elon Musk. They sell all these cars, right? It might be the number one car seller in America. I don't know. It's crazy how much they sell. They don't have a traditional dealership model, so they're just a disruptor. You see Teslas everywhere. Tesla. You see them everywhere now. Heck, I see the freaking Cybertrucks everywhere now. There's 4 in Bradenton. This is not that big of a town, and we're on the other side of the country from where they're made, I think. Anyway, what I'm getting at is these companies ramped up thinking that yes, the government's going to force electric. They had all that, right? But then they also had, hey, we've already seen there's a huge demand for electric vehicles because look at all the cars Tesla's selling. And what do old school car dealers do? They just fight for market share. Old school car companies. They fight for market share. And dealers fight for market share too. So they start thinking, well, we'll just take away some of Tesla's EV market share. But that was a miscalculation. So not only did they have the political scene that changed, because again, now a lot of car buyers, now that these last 3 years, they think they're going to be forced to buy an electric. See, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of car buyers would have said, ooh, I think Teslas are cool. Man, maybe if I needed a second car, I'd get a Tesla. And a lot of people did. But then the political landscape changed and started telling people, no, now we're going to force you to go electric. So a lot of car buyers were like, well, no, they got the FU attitude and they didn't buy anything really. Well, on top of that, these companies have ramped up, right? And they thought they could get some of that Tesla business, but what they didn't realize is now that the political landscape has changed, you're not going to get a lot of people that were considering electric and thinking maybe I'll do electric. Now they're turned off by it because they're being forced. They're like, they're out of the consideration set. You can see I kind of gave some of these same analogies when we were talking about battery tools years ago versus now. The same as in cars. A lot of people are just turned off. But Tesla continues to make sales because people are not buying Teslas because of electric, I don't think. Or here's what I'll say. Anybody who wants an electric vehicle, just that wants one, either they're coming of age and they've always wanted one, or whatever reason they want an electric vehicle, they're going to get a Tesla over everything else because of one reason, because Tesla is an influencer-led company. This is today's economy. This is how the world works today. All right. This is the content to commerce. You have to understand that Elon Musk is nothing but content generation, and he's an influencer. Yes, he's a businessman. He's the richest man in the world. He's all of these things. He's smart. He's all of those things. But nowadays, he's mainly an influencer. And his content is made on his own platform, which is called X, formerly called Twitter. And he makes content there, and he wields his influence, right? And he gains popularity, and he gains views and eyeballs. And what does that do? It trickles down to his businesses. There are people now that look at him like he's like this free speech hero, right? And so they'll buy Teslas just because they want to support him, the influencer. Elon can continue to sell those EVs because he's an influencer. Ford cannot because they're a cold brand now. I think there's probably still someone named Ford that runs Ford, but the general public doesn't know who he or she is. They have all the name and all the iconic history, but they've lost touch with the way marketing is done today. There's no Ford influencer. Personally, the CEO of Ford, I don't care who it is, there should be somebody with the name Ford out there freaking racing in NASCAR, right? spending all, you should be the driver, broski. You know what I mean? Because you want to be that influencer like what Elon is. That's what I was going back to. Now we can go back to the OPE side, right? And you'll see there is no influencer for a company like Kress necessarily, right? Those are companies that are coming to market in a traditional way. They don't have an audience. They're coming in. They're having to buy the audience through marketing and things like that, right? But they don't, right now you can't buy the audience because the audience doesn't want you no matter how much money you spend. Whereas influencer-led brands, okay, they have a built-in audience. And so that's the content to commerce, right? I used to use Mr. Beast as the example, but I don't know if that's a good idea anymore with all the poor controversy that dude's under. Holy cow. So I'll use Whistling Diesel. I could use George Clooney. What was the name of his liquor that he sold? Tres Generaciones or something? Some sort of tequila that sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. Influencer-led, right? Whistling Diesel just released an alcoholic beverage. And boy, some of the comments calling him sellout, that was interesting. I empathize, but that's content to commerce. That's going to be a successful brand because he's already got an audience to sell it to. He doesn't have to buy the audience, right? And so you gotta. By the way, those of you that call Whistling Diesel sellout, I get called a sellout very rarely. Actually, I think people in our community understand that I built my own brand. I've invested in it. I'm bootstrapped, right? I don't know. Whistling Diesel's a little bit different, maybe. I mean, he's bootstrapped too. Now he's selling alcohol, which isn't necessarily on brand to what he does, which is wrecking cars, where I sell fertilizer, so it kind of is all in brand. Maybe that's why I don't get called a sellout as much. But either way, people calling you a sellout, if you just think about this, if you work a day job and you have a boss, then you're kind of a sellout to that boss. Now, I'm not criticizing you. That's how the world works. But if you are only allowed 2 weeks of vacation a year, or if your vacation is limited, let's say you wanted to take 6 months off and go do whatever you want to do, could you go to your boss and go, hey, boss, I'm going to leave tomorrow. I'll see you in 6 months. I'll have my job back exactly as it was when I get back. Can you do that? If you can't, then that means that boss is exercising some level of control over you, right? Because he's telling you, no, you can't do that. You'll lose your job. Well, now he's got control over you. You know, and then some of you are on the golden handcuffs where you're like 38 years old and you're making 150 grand a year and you hate your job, but you don't really think you can make 150 grand anywhere else. That's a golden handcuffs right there. So you could call that sold out, but that's half the world, right? So no, I don't think Whistling Diesel's a sellout. He's trying something. He's trying to monetize his platform, right? He's built this thing. There's no playbook for how to do it. Oh, influencers, here, when you build this platform, that you have people that like to watch your content and like to follow what you do, and they'll even learn from you, and they like you to teach them and all of these things. What do you do with that? How do you make a living on that? There's not a book necessarily out there. Now, you can look to some of these larger companies or these larger influencers like Elon Musk, and you can kind of learn a little bit there. But back to it, Kress doesn't necessarily have that, right? So they're a traditional business where they're coming into the marketplace. They can see that there's going to be a trend and they're going to hit that trend. That's how traditional markets or traditional businesses start. And then you have to buy into the audience through advertising. In the old days, it would be TV, billboards, radio, magazines, newspapers, right? Nowadays, it's mostly digital. And even more so, it's influencer-led. Now, I know that Kress does things with influencers, so that's not what I'm getting at. And in fact, we're kind of doing something together. They sent us robot mowers for the Freedom Factory, and in exchange, I'm going to do a video for them. So that's them working with influencers, which, by the way, I wanted to have out quite a bit ago, but we had some issues, and then we had a flood, but we had some issues even earlier than that pushed us into our busy season and then all kinds of stuff. But they are working with influencers. But what they are not is an influencer-led company, right? I'm wondering, when are we going to get the influencer that's big enough to create their own OPE brand? Boy, that'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? But probably what they would have to do is just white label something that already exists, because all of the OPE brands are made in China. I don't think any are made in the USA, the big ones. Even if it's a company that has engineering or was founded in another country, they're all still made in China, and I'm pretty sure they're all made pretty close to the same way or whatever. Maybe some of them have some different technology with inside of their battery, but I don't know if an influencer would ever have enough capital or time to create not only an OPE line, but an improved battery. They'd have to partner up with somebody already doing it. So super interesting. But I think that would be one way to get battery adopted is if somebody that already had a platform, that already had a following of folks that were like-minded and it fit their brand, maybe an influencer could bring a battery line of tools to market. That'd be kind of interesting. I don't know if there's anyone big enough in the lawn care market to really do what needs to be done. There's not. There's none of us have a large enough audience. We just don't. You'd have to have millions in order to make a splash that some like these companies are trying to make. So what if we looked at influence in a little bit of a different way? What if we looked at influence in a local area and we invested in our young people that are coming up? See, I think Gen Z is a based generation. I think they're an extreme entrepreneurial driven generation. I think they are a generation that doesn't want to work for anybody else. They still want their independence, but they want to be the leader. They want to be the ones that start the businesses, that grow the businesses, that lead. I think that's this generation. I really do. I think the Gen Zers will be leading their elder millennial parents one day in these companies. And so if I'm a company, now this is a long-term strategy. This is betting on that long-term investment, not the we're going to catch the trend that's going to force a sweep across the country in 3 or 4 years, that trend, because again, that ship sailed now, I think. This is we're going to invest in folks for the next decade to see the return. And I would go to high schools, trade schools, junior colleges. I would actually take the trade of lawn care, okay, and I would turn that into a super respectable trade, and I would make Kress the basis of it. All of our tools. Now, the reason I would use those, I would pretty much put all of my marketing and all my investment into these young folks. You got to pick some strategic areas of the country, right, that you think would be ripe for this. You go in and you inspire the new entrepreneurs to enter the lawn care marketplace, to enter the lawn care business. You teach them, you give them your tools, right? You're the one that's investing in them. I mean, isn't this kind of how, don't the big not big pharma companies, what's big chemical companies, don't they pay universities to do studies on their stuff? I don't know why companies like outdoor power equipment companies can't pay universities to use their stuff or to use it in their education system. I don't know, but I'm just saying I would invest in the young folks. I would start, and I would not only that and this is what I would do is I would get their businesses started again with all of my equipment, and I would sponsor them. I would subsidize them. I would put my marketing dollars to drive news articles around them and grow. And I would turn them into the local influencers, and they're using your tools, and it's you that is investing in them. I would look at influence in that way, and I would really approach this younger entrepreneurial generation, and I would teach them. Because listen, when we're going to get to robotics, I've been talking more about the Kress hand tools and stuff, which are awesome, but the future here is robotics. Again, this is not traditional lawn care. You're now managing networks of robots, essentially. You're not just out mowing and blowing. There is going to always be some of that, and eventually technology will get it to where you don't have to trim anymore either, right? So then you're truly managing a network, just showing up maybe to clean the thing. But that's where it's going to get to. But you start it with your better OPE, your better power equipment, all of that. You start it with these younger folks, and you build that way, right? And you get that name out there. I have to assume some of these older OEMs like Toro and these, didn't they do that originally? Didn't they invest strategically in places in the similar way? I'm not sure, but that's what I would do is I would start working from the ground up. And you have a dealer network that can tell you who these young entrepreneurs are, and you can actually help the dealer. Now, the dealers are going to have to convert too. The dealers are going to have to get used to dealing with a younger generation of folks and their different types of business approach, right? So that might be a little bit of a challenge. I don't know. But that's what I would do is I'd invest there. I'd invest in younger folks. The other thing about younger folks is they don't have the negativity towards the battery power that the over 40 and 45s do. And why do I say that? I say that because their parents probably used battery equipment. And I say that their parents, their homeowner parents, their lawyer, doctor parents, their plumber parents, their normal parents, right? They probably use battery. See, battery equipment has not been rejected in the homeowner space like it has in the professional space. Homeowners have adopted battery 20 years ago. Now it's gotten much better in the last 10 years, even in the last 5. But battery equipment for homeowners has been fine for a good 12 to 15 years. It's been acceptable. It's excellent now. And in fact, I think some of the homeowner equipment could be used, and could be used on professional trucks, and it'd last almost just as long, just saying. But either way, homeowners have adopted that a long time ago. So if you're investing in these 19, 20, 21-year-old kids that are not going to go to college because they don't see the value in college, they don't want to come out of college with debt, they're entrepreneurial, they want to start trade-type businesses. Everybody talks about this. You're going to invest in them. You're going to work with them. They're going to be your future influence. Their parents have already taught them that battery's fine because that's what they've seen their whole lives. So I think there's a really big opportunity here to switch, not only, again, changing things around in your focus and focusing in the markets of California and that, which I totally get. Pick a couple other markets where you really do want to break into and try this long-term investing in the young folks, investing in the young influencers, the young local influencers, get them out there, give them a platform, get them speaking at conferences, whatever it takes, get them out there. And there's also probably some influencers, some other young influencers online that already have up and coming businesses that you could work with to convert. But again, you got to kind of offer them something else. Don't just, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of free tools. No, get with them and use your platform to elevate them, to collaborate with them, to spread their content as they spread your brand. I'm thinking of Solar Punk Steve over there in Orlando. Maybe you guys reach out to him. Super smart dude. You guys should have a conversation with him if you haven't already. But there's a bunch of others. There's a bunch of companies out there that are already starting in electric. Maybe you acquire those. Maybe you go out and acquire some already existing all-electric businesses and you convert them into franchises, Kress franchises. Oh, boy. I'll tell you what, this is good. Kress, again, I know I come off arrogant, but you got to let me just have a little fun riffing with my audience here sometimes. It's fun. I'm probably totally off on all this, but what if you did that? What if you bought 3 or 4 of the largest all-electric companies in the country, regionally based, which I don't know how big those would be. There's got to be, I know there's a couple that have several crews out, and you convert them to Kress, not Kress, I was going to say Kress dealers. You convert them to Kress companies, to franchises, Kress franchises, just like, Lawn Doctor franchises and who else franchises? You know what I'm saying? Lawn Doctor is the one I'm thinking of. Spring Green up north, that has franchise. Those might be all corporate owned now. Heck, McDonald's is a franchise, okay? Burger King's a franchise. Why don't you make Kress a franchise? So not only is it an OPE brand that's sold through dealers, it's also a franchise now. Boy, that'd be interesting. Wonder if somebody would get the rights to that. Boy, that could be an interesting play too, huh? And then you already have your dealer network to service your franchisees. Maybe some of your dealers would actually become franchisees at the same time. Wonder what a territory would cost that way. Anyway, all right, I think I'm going to go ahead and end that there. I'm always cognizant that some of my stuff comes off negative. If it came off that way, y'all, that's not how I meant it. What I meant it was I saw some news. I'm empathizing mainly as a business owner myself in a different, I sell fertilizer, but I'm thinking to myself, man, if I was having to deal with this, how would I do it? That's really what all of this came from, is what would I do? What did I see? What could I learn from the past? What could I learn from other businesses that are going through the same thing? And how could I adjust going forward to make it better? So that's what I would do. And I do that. And I think any of you that are in business, it's healthy for you to do these. Now, you're not going to spew it out on your platform like I do, but it's healthy to do that because it helps you, I think, to become a better person, to bob and weave through the challenges that you have in whatever industry or business you work in. All right, one thing I'm seeing a lot of is, now keep in mind I'm making this podcast here in the middle of August, so we got to look at the timing. Doesn't matter if you have cool season or warm season grass. There's a big difference in what we're going to do in August to approach certain problems versus if this was March. Because in March, you got the whole season ahead of you. In August, you don't. You only have a few months left. Again, that's even for warm season lawns. And I'm mainly talking about disease. Folks are coming up and they're putting up pictures and they're going, hey, I got all this disease. And now it's spread, whatever it is. Typically up north for cool season lawns, it's mostly going to be dollar spot. And the dollar spots start small, but once they all grow together, it starts to look really gnarly. And it can really, put brown splotches over an entire lawn. That's most of what you're going to see. You might also see some brown patch, which is a little more serious. By the way, dollar spot's not serious at all. It looks terrible, but it only affects the leaf blade surface, not the crowns of the roots. So the grass just grows back whenever the disease stops affecting it. And that's what I was getting to. If you have cool season lawn right now, in another 2 to 3 weeks, because we're already in the middle of August, you're going to be in September, and the weather's going to shift. The humidity's going to go down. You're going to have some cooler nights, even some cooler days. You're going to start maybe picking up a little intermittent rain here and there, but it's really that humidity is going to go down, and that's going to stop all of the disease in the next 2 to 3 weeks, 4 at the most. So if you were to put a fungicide down today, what really good is that going to do when the weather is going to fix it for you in 2 or 3 weeks? It doesn't make sense to put the chemical down. Don't spend the money. Don't waste the chemical. Don't do it. Just why? Just let the weather fix it for you. What you should do now is stick to your basics. Frequent mowing. If you do have disease present, go ahead and catch the clippings, even though that's not practical for most people, but go ahead and catch clippings if you can. Water deep and infrequent, obviously, and then just wait. You can still fertilize. Everybody will tell you to stop fertilizing. They get so scared of disease. No, you can still fertilize. When you get sick, you don't stop eating. You don't stop taking your vitamins. In fact, if you do anything when you get sick, what do? You take more vitamins, right? Well, I don't understand why you would not feed your grass when it's sick with a disease. It needs the nutrients, the basic nutrients, so it can continue to grow, so processes inside the plant can continue to work, albeit that's under attack with the disease, but at least the processes continue to work that are alive. Don't starve out the healthy grass, right? Now, are we going to go out and put down 1.5 pounds of nitrogen? No. We're going to put down, for cool season lawn, stress blend, higher potassium, little magnesium, right? Call these electrolytes. Great for something under stress. A little bit of nitrogen, though. We need some growth. Not a lot. It's only 7%. Okay, so down to warm season lawns. Same thing here. We have a longer growing season. We cut off a little earlier. But as long as you're mowing every week on warm season grass, which all of you are still mowing every week, you can continue throwing down fertilizer. Now, St. Augustine grass, I'm in a fert blackout. Man, I want to talk so bad about some of this fert blackout law that I've been studying. A lot of it doesn't make any sense to me now that I got into it. I was never going to really dig too deep into the fert ban laws. I just was somebody that thought I was following them, and I realized I wasn't following them. And so I started digging in deeper, which was the advice that was given. And now I find so many discrepancies in the law, and nobody can answer the question. So anyway, for the rest of you with warm season lawns that don't have a communist fert ban, again, I care about the waterways here, but I just want the laws to be fair to everyone, right? And I want, as a taxpayer, I want to know, why is the law written this way and not that way? That's what I want to know. But for those of you that don't live under that type of a communist regime in Florida, you should continue fertilizing. And I actually like flagship for warm season grass this time of year. Now, if you're tired of mowing, because it's only 3/4 pound of nitrogen, and half of that is slow release, but still, it does get the long growing. If you don't like that, then just go to double dark, because it's got a little bit less nitrogen, it's got a little bit more iron, so you're going to get all the same good green up, but you're just not going to get quite the growth. Or you could use Freedom. But keep fertilizing, keep going, because what we have to do is continue getting our lawn thick, because what's going to happen with warm season turf, and it doesn't matter if you're St. Augustine, Bermuda, Centipede, Bahia grass, or zoysia, it doesn't really matter. You are going to go dormant sometime towards November, December, and when your grass goes dormant, if it's not thick, if it hasn't covered all of the soil, any areas of the soil that are open, that's immediately where weeds will grow. Because we don't get cold enough in the winter to stop everything. We just get cold enough to stop our grass, but there's a ton of weeds that are adapted to grow at lower temperatures over the winter, with the big one being Poa annua. If you live in Georgia and you have Bermuda lawn and you have green splotches in your lawn in like January and February, that's Poa annua. And it's filling into the thin spots. Now, it'll cut through also. It'll cut through A lot of weeds will cut through a thick turf stand, but again, the best defense, especially during winter with warm season turf, is a thick, dormant turf stand. That's your best defense. Just think about seeds that blow around. If they land on top of the lawn, they're much less likely to hit soil. Okay, but in a bare spot, they'll wash into the bare spot, and now they're directly on soil, and the weeds can grow. So it's important to go. So right now, if you have thin spots, you want to continue getting your lawn thicker. That's why you want to continue feeding it every 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, with some nitrogen. Again, double dark or flagship would be best. You could use stress blend if you really want to. I mean, your lawns are under stress too. But I really want to make sure that you're at least getting some sort of nitrogen a little bit more. Now, we're going to have quite a bit of time left here. You're going to start wanting to think about pre-emergence, of course, but that's still a little bit of ways away. And we'll talk more about that through the podcast and through my videos. But the biggest thing I wanted to stress for all of you, if you have disease problems, though, the fungicide, the weather's going to cure it. Even in the warm season areas, even in Georgia, even in the next 3 to 4 weeks in Georgia, things are going to start to cool down for you. South Carolina, things are going to start to, your humidity is bad in South Carolina right now and coastal Georgia because that freaking hurricane that went over you. They got more rain than us, actually, in Florida. We got, here in Manatee County, I think we got 19 inches. I was talking to my friend Drew up at Sod Solutions. They're he's in the Charleston area. I think he said they got 20 inches. So that whole low country area got really flooded. I mean, it's called low country for a reason. I need to go look at the news. I used to live outside of Hilton Head, so beautiful area there. Pooler, Georgia, I always say is the most concentrated area in Georgia where they planted zoysia. If you live in Pooler, Georgia, chances are you have a zoysia lawn. That's all low country in there. Beautiful area, Savannah, Georgia. Your humidity's been really bad, but even in the next 3 to 4 weeks, your humidity is going to come down. And it's typically, guys, humidity that is going to be what brings on disease. Now, in Florida, South Florida, we have a whole other thing. And in a whole other, St. Augustine in Texas, there's a whole other set of winter diseases. But again, I'm just not big on the fungicides. Now, I'm paying for it this year because if you look at my channel and you follow it, my St. Augustine grass I've got, my palmetto, has a huge infection from gray leaf spot. And I get it every year. And sometimes I'll talk about it, sometimes I won't. I haven't treated for a couple years. I treated for the springtime because I was growing back some plugs. I had some holes in the lawn from where I had killed out Bermuda grass using the Rejuvenation and the Fusilade combination over by there. If you haven't seen that, people ask me all the time, how do I get rid of Bermuda grass in St. Augustine? Go to the Lawn Care Nut channel and search that. I've got videos where I use a combination of Rejuvenation herbicide, which is a safener, mixed with Fusilade, which is a broadleaf and grassy weed herbicide. You mix those together, you can spray that on St. Augustine grass, and it does kill Bermuda, and it worked really, really well. During that time, I was also spraying fungicides because what I didn't want was for a fungus to get into the lawn, a disease, and slow it down while it was trying to overcome, number one, the herbicide, right? Because you really can't spray herbicide on a diseased lawn, on a stressed lawn. But number two, the herbicide itself slows things down. So I kept the disease out, and that did really well. Once the Bermuda was eliminated and we got into May, I didn't keep treating for disease because I rarely do in summer. I just let the gray leaf spot do what it's going to do. It does some damage. I continue to mow. Most of the gray leaf spot, most of the lesions are on the tips of the grass, and so every time you cut, you're cutting off the literal disease. Now, I don't bag like I should. I am now. I've been bagging now because of this major problem I have. But I usually just mow my way through it, don't even bag, and because the lawn is so vigorous with all the rain and everything, it does fine. The St. Augustine just recovers. Few areas might die back here or there, nothing bad. But this year, what I did, and you guys have seen it on the channel, and it's still funny, people still accuse me of faking this, but I didn't, or setting it up for clickbait. But I allowed my lawn to get overgrown, and I dumped all the clippings back in and kept melting them in instead of getting them out, and it has taken one big, large area of the palmetto where all those clippings have just kept in the water and the moisture. It's just a teeming soup of nasty, stinky, breaking down clippings that are just wet, and that's allowed that disease to get even worse to the point where it has killed off. I'm pretty sure it's killed off a large section of my palmetto. So we're going to let it go. It's just grass, right? I can just resod if I have to. I'm doing it so you guys can see, hey, look at this huge mistake I made by not mowing, and then when I did mow my overgrown lawn, I didn't rake it up, I didn't bag it, I put it all, look at what it's allowed to happen. And by the way, that whole area is now going to be overcome with Bermuda, wild Bermuda, so I'm going to have to resod it anyway. So it's basically I made a mistake, and I'm going to continue paying for it, And for me, I have to pay for it on YouTube and on national television, which is fine. It happens. What am I going to do? My channel has always been about this is me in the lawn. And so, yeah, I made a mistake. Rather than try to hide it and act like I'm perfect, no, I'll just show you. This is what I'm dealing with. I have the same issues you do. I make mistakes too. Now, some of you don't make mistakes. Great. This would be a reason for you to definitely make sure you don't. Definitely don't let your lawn get overgrown. And if you do, you got to bag it. You can't try to suck it up and just mulch it in. It doesn't work. And you can see it's allowed that disease to take over. So we'll have to see. Maybe I'll end up having to resod. That's my main stage too. Palmetto was always my favorite St. Augustine grass. And I'll tell you why. Number one, it was always a little deeper, darker blue-green to me when compared to Floratam, which Floratam is what everybody has here for St. Augustine grass, pretty much. I always thought it looked a little greener. But the biggest thing about palmetto is it's softer underfoot. It really is. Floratam is a crunchy grass. It's not that great underfoot, but palmetto is not bad. It really isn't. Now, it still gets spongy and it grows tall, just like a St. Augustine does, but it's a little more fragile, and so it's not too bad to walk on barefoot. That's why I always was my favorite. But anybody that's worked with it knows it is more susceptible to disease, especially gray leaf spot. And to a degree, large patch is pretty susceptible to that. Seems more susceptible to large patch to me, from my experience, but for sure it is more susceptible to gray leaf spot. And you will not find too many growers of palmetto in Florida anymore if you call around. At least in my area, in the Tampa Bay area, across to Arcadia, even across to Daytona, I don't think there's too much palmetto being grown here. There may be in North Florida. Y'all can let me know in comments if you can find it easily, but we don't find it as much around here anymore. Floratam, everywhere. Everybody still grows Floratam. So, but that palmetto is more susceptible to disease, and so, I don't know, this might be a chance for me to resod with something else. It is obviously... If you were in my position, right, I have multiple relationships with grass companies that have patents on grass or sod farms that have interest in getting a grass out into the marketplace or getting it well known. We obviously are doing some stuff with Scott's Kentucky Bluegrass, their Pro Vista. I've done stuff with their Pro Vista St. Augustine in the past. I worked with Sod Solutions out at the Freedom Factory. So I could easily call one of these and go, hey, I got 2,500 square feet in my front that I need to replace. Would you like your grass to be on my main stage? It wouldn't be hard to find someone for that. And it made great content. So that's not practical for all of you, right? If that was you, if you had the disease problem that I had right now and you were going to have to resod, you'd have to pay for that. And I want you to know I'm always conscious of that. And so whatever I do, I want to make sure that I make it something where I kind of go through the whole process, though, to go, hey, if you did this, if you paid for this, this is what it would cost to either have the sod delivered and then you rent the sod cutter and cut it out yourself, which between you and me, you don't want to do. You do not want to run a sod cutter. You do not want to run a sod cutter. Listen to this one more time. You do not want to run a sod cutter. If you've run an aerator and you've had any discomfort at all with that, a sod cutter is double. It will beat the crap out of you. It won't work right half the time. The depth will be off. You just don't want to do it. Trust me when I say that, okay? So you're going to want to hire that out. Now, whether I DIY it or not, I don't know. Probably what I'll do is hire it out, and then the company I hire, I'll be like, yo, man, let me make a couple passes so I can show everybody how hard it is and what a man I am using this sod cutter. And maybe I could even film it to where it looks like I did all the sod. That's what I should do. I'll hire it out, and we'll do a clip of me starting. Then I'll have them guys do all the rest of it. And then we'll have me in the middle, acting like, show all of it. That's what we're going to do. And then it'll look like I did it all. And all I got to do is splash water on myself so it looks like I worked hard. Man, that's the idea. Okay. So we'll do it that way. I'm just joking. But yeah, I might look at getting something new. I will throw this out there. If you're a St. Augustine lover, look up Cobalt. Cobalt. I want to tease that one. So I like all grass. Just so you guys know, if you see me working with a company that does turf, it's not like I'm beholden to that company. You have to understand, I like all grass. Like, I'm not like, I have some that are my favorites, but it's also kind of like, how do I say this without being, it's like dating in college. My favorite is who I'm on a date with tonight. That's my favorite. And so when I'm stepping on grass, that's my favorite grass that I'm stepping on right there. But I mean, if I go to another house the next day and their grass is also super hot and thick and juicy like I like it, then that's going to be my favorite grass that day. I like all grass, like I like all the ladies. I'm not beholden to one or the other, but definitely look up cobalt. That is one of the newest St. Augustine grasses coming out. I've only seen it in a tray one time at Bayside Sod at a field day they had. So it looked cool, but I can't make a judgment from that. But I hear there's a field growing here somewhere in the Tampa Bay area over by there, and that I might be able to get my hands on some. So I guess I'm kind of sharing. I've been using the term inside baseball. I guess I'm sharing with you some conversations I have here and there with friends and think about what I might try to do here or there or get a hold of. It is pretty exciting for me to work with something new and cool. Anyway, a lot coming up. What I got going on? Tomorrow, I'm going to go over to the Freedom Factory, and we're going to top dress the Bermuda grass with a mixture of sand and Command compost. I'm putting the Command down because I can't put nitrogen down because of those fertilizer bands, nitrogen and phosphorus bands I talked about, and it's really nitrogen because nitrogen drives the bus, baby daddy. That's what you need. If you want to grow big grass, you got to give it nitrogen, but I can't do that right now. But compost has nutrients in it, including some nitrogen, so we're going to put that down. Plus, it'll be good for the soil overall. It's got the biotics in there. It's a really cool story how they created their inoculant. The guy that created it, he lived in England, and I guess in England, they had depleted their peat bogs to a point where they just shut off the availability of peat. Now, you guys know peat moss. We use that a lot here. England, the UK, it's an island essentially, so I guess their peat bogs got depleted. And, peat was used in every growing medium there. And gardening is a big deal in the UK. You ever seen some of the most beautiful gardens in the world are in England? Just incredible. And so they use a lot of peat moss in their nurseries and gardening just like we do. And all of a sudden that was going to be cut off. And so this gentleman was tasked with finding a replacement for peat. And so he started doing all kinds of experiments, heating this up and that. And during all of that, and I should have him tell the story because he's way better at it, but he told it to me, he discovered this inoculant that when you do something with it in compost, it heats up to these, big degrees, and it turns this compost into this really rich compost. Again, I'm bad at this, but it's definitely biotechnology because of the inoculant that they put in there, and you can see the piles are steaming, and it doesn't stink. So anyway, it's a waste stream product. They put this inoculant in there, and it creates just tons of soil life and so much more because they don't have to turn the piles because every time they do that, it kills life in there. They don't have to do that. They bag this up in this beautiful soil with this inoculant in it, and then you can use it. And so you got the compost that's got all of the nutrients that I want, and then you got all the good bugs in there and the fungi and all that stuff and the biology that's going to be good for the soil out there because it's just been underwater for a couple days. So I think this is going to help to just rejuvenate that, but I'm hoping, again, you guys know me, I just want the nitrogen, baby. And it's blackout compliant. And then we're putting the sand down because of the fact that we got some undulation out there. I got the robots mowing, they're doing great. But I want to just fill in some of the undulation to get that as flat as possible because I do mow it before the events. I mow it with a real mower. And so I just want to be able to get it flatter so it just looks all that much better. So that's going to be a fun project that I'm actually doing tomorrow. And that's another one of those where I got a company coming in that's doing all the work. I just get to play with the equipment, but I get to introduce you to their really cool equipment. So that's going to be fun. They got these really cool top dressers. They got this one that aerates and top dresses at the same time. I don't know if he's a Mulchmate dealer too. I don't know if he's bringing any of his Mulchmate stuff. They got some really cool stuff that a lot of Florida companies are using to do this top dressing. And by the way, this Command Soil, there's professional lawn services that do Command Soil top dressing for homeowners, like 2 or 3 times a year. So really interesting. I'm learning a lot about it. I'm watching what they do. Golf courses are big here. They told me out of the 1,000 golf courses that are in Florida, 600 of them use the technology, the Command Soil technology. I don't know if it's just the inoculant or if it's the inoculant that's into the compost or both, but they definitely use it on the golf courses. There's the University of Florida touts it and is doing studies on it or has done studies. I got to do a lot more. I'm in the midst of all of my research and learning. I've been going down the rabbit hole. Just go search up the word inoculant and then just go read that word in all the on all the whatever, Science Direct. Just start reading the definitions of that word and then just follow the rabbit trails. It's a really interesting, it's just cool. It's fun to learn about. And then, of course, when I do that, I'm reminded of the Tool song, Fear Inoculum. And so, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's pretty cool listening to that while you're actually doing the research on inoculants. Pretty cool. If you're not a Tool fan, then you probably won't understand. If you are a Tool fan, then you definitely understand what I'm talking about. All right, y'all. So this segment, I'm actually recording a couple days later. I do the podcast like that. I'll record an hour and a half block or so one day, and then an hour and a half block or so another day, and edit all that in between. And a lot of stuff never makes it, just so you guys know, because it's just I ramble on about stupid stuff or whatever, and so I don't put it all in there. So I usually do about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of podcast, and it edits down to an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours at the most. That said, everything you've heard previously in this podcast was done a couple days ago, and since then I've actually ended up, we did yesterday at the Freedom Factory, we did the top dressing with the Command Compost and the sand on the Bermuda. And I would love to be able to show you all of that, but I'm going to wait another week or so. I want it to rain on it a little bit, get some irrigation in there, because what that'll do is it will wash the beach away. As you guys know, if you've ever done any type of sand leveling, and by the way, you want to talk about a controversial subject, sand leveling. But if you've ever done that, you'll realize that when you're done, if you do it right, really the whole lawn looks white like a beach. Very little grass ever shows through, no matter how much you drag it and go over it, because you're really trying to fill in those low spots, those gaps. That's what you're trying to do. So you got to get the sand thick. And then it takes time. And, well, people get worried, by the way. That's what I was getting at. People see that beach and they're thinking, oh man, am I going to suffocate my grass? So you give it a week or so, some good rain, some good irrigation, and it all kind of melts in. Remember, sand seeks its own level and it actually packs down once it gets watered. It's perfect. And that's what you want. You want it to seek its own level. Like I said, go to the beach. And when you first walk on the beach, the sand is white and fluffy. At least it is here on the west coast of Florida. I don't know what they have on the east coast, gray clay or something, their beaches, and their water's like frozen. But on the west coast, our water's like bath water. It's clear, and it's clear on the other coast too. But our sand is sugary white. It's so nice to walk in it in bare feet. It actually can be kind of difficult. But you'll notice when you get to the dry sand, it's like that. It's lumpy, it's clumpy, it's hilly. But as soon as you get to where water's been washing over it, closer to the shore there, the shoreline, you will find that the water has naturally flattened out the sand. The sand has sought a level, a flat. It's not level. I keep saying the word level. You don't actually want your lawn level. You want it to be water to be able to flow across it. And if it's level, water will sit. You just want it flat. But you definitely don't mind some slopes as long as most of it's flat so you can mow. And so that's what you're doing when you're putting that sand down, is you're waiting for that water to get there, just like it does at the beach, to wash over it and flatten it out. And hopefully it lands or it washes into the low spots and the high spots, or into the low spots and equal up to the high spots, so you level everything off. That's the hope. That's the prayer. Now, we did the compost too, just because I wanted to do the collab with those guys and with the machinery and all that. That was fun. And I also, again, the compost, really, to me, it's great for the soil. I love the biology that's in it. I hope it does all kind of really cool stuff. Keeps me from disease, all these different things. But really, I care about the nitrogen in the compost because, as I mentioned, I'm in that blackout. So that happened yesterday. But one of the things I learned as I was talking, because these are guys that, one of these guys is a big sod installer in Central Florida. In fact, he's done most of the villages, in fact. And I think, was he telling me that when his business was at peak, he was laying 40 trucks of sod a day. I think now he's at around 25 trucks of sod a day because he's kind of scaled back a little bit. But even 25 trucks of sod a day being laid. Imagine that. And then in their peak, they were doing 40. Anyway, so he was there. A couple other guys that are applicators were there. Just a bunch of us talking. It was really good. But here's what I learned. I learned something about Bahia grass. Now, they all pronounce it Bahia, but you guys know I pronounce it Bahia grass. And I always will, because I'm from Pinellas County and we pronounced it Bahia. And that makes sense. Bahia, Bahia. There is no Bahia in there. It's Bahia. Okay? If you want Bahia in there, it's got to be Hay. Y'all got to change the spelling. But y'all ain't willing to do that, so it's Bahia grass, and I hope everybody knows that. Either way, I've always wondered, why is Bahia grass this kind of like stepchild of the turf grass industry? Like when you talk to people, definitely when you talk to applicators and not the applicators I was just with yesterday, they put the command on the Bahia grass and they love it. I'm talking about everyone else in the turf grass world pretty much hates on Bahia grass. But one thing I learned is that a lot of the communities in Florida now, they're not even allowing the planting of St. Augustine grass. They want what they call water smart grasses or low water grasses. They consider zoysia to be one of those, which I have not noticed that in my practices, in my practical practices. I've seen zoysia needs just as much water as St. Augustine, but I guess there's a fraction of a bit less that it needs, and so that qualifies. But that's also why you find Bahia grass in backyards. A lot of y'all that move into subdivisions and you find St. Augustine in the front and Bahia in the back. I always thought that was a money-saving thing because Bahia is so much cheaper than St. Augustine. But from what these guys were telling me, that's not all of it. That it's really about that water conservation. These builders, they have to meet a certain, I don't know if it's water conservation, water use, I don't know what it is, but some sort of code or whatever. And by the way, if there's a Florida builder on that wants to come on, I'm talking about what I hear, throwing it out there as a way to help educate. Maybe you guys will do more studies on it. I know I'm going to, but I'm also asking if you are an expert in this, reach out to me, and I would love to hear more about it, positive or negative, whether you agree with it or not. I just want to know. But apparently there's these rules in place in some of these counties where they have to install this water conservation type landscaping or whatever, and Bahia qualifies for that. So that's why they plant that in the backyards, because it's supposed to do something to do with low water usage. Now that ticks off homeowners. I've never met a homeowner that thinks, oh yeah, this is great that I have two different grass types, especially because the weed controls on them are so different. Yeah, it's anyway, that's what I was told. But here's the other piece of it, and here's what I was thinking about, is I have sodded Bahia a couple times, and I've also watched it done. They just redid the street outside my house, and there was pallets and pallets of Bahia out there, and I ride my bike by, walk my dog by, and look at them and stuff like that, and watch it going down. I learned a lot. But it's always clumpy and chunky. But the other thing is there will often be cow pies in and amongst the sod. And anybody that's sodded Bahia, you have definitely found a cow pie. And I was like, why is that? So what these guys were telling me is that apparently Bahia grass is not necessarily grown on sod farms commercially. And the reason why is because the fields can't turn over fast enough. So here's how they grow sod in Florida. And warm season turf in general, as I know, and especially St. Augustine grass, because there's no seed for St. Augustine grass. It doesn't exist. There is seed for Bermuda, a little bit for centipede. There is, zoysia, yes, rare. Those are almost all grown, though, propagated vegetatively from an existing plant. You just take the sprigs, and in the case of Bermuda, you can spread the sprigs over, and they'll turn into sod eventually. They'll grow. Or you can do plugs. But the way sod farms do it is when they cut their fields, they cut the rows out and they'll leave what are called ribbons, like a 2 or 3 inch strip of grass. Let's say it's a St. Augustine grass. They'll cut through the field and pull out, whether they're doing squares or whether they're doing rolls. And every time they have to go make a new pass, they leave a 2 to 3 inch ribbon in between of existing living rooted grass, turf grass. And so they'll leave these ribbons of St. Augustine, and it takes, I guess, about a year for the stolons of those ribbons to grow back together and fill back in, and now you have a completely new, fresh crop of St. Augustine grass. It takes a year, so you can turn the field over one time per year, okay? But with Bahia grass, it takes 3 to 4 years. It has rhizomes, but they're small and chunky, and that's part of the reason why when you sod with it, the sod pieces fall apart. There's no tensile strength there. There's no rhizomes and stolons that are tightly knit together to hold those pieces together in these nice squares. That doesn't exist with Bahia grass because it's got those chunky little rhizomes, and so there's not a lot of it to hold onto each other. They fall apart. Also, the fact that it spreads so slow would just indicate to you that it's not going to be as tight of a grass. But for a sod farmer, you can't really make money when you can only turn a field over every 3 to 4 years. Why would you plant that grass when you have every other grass you can turn over in a year? And there might even be some that are faster, right? Because that's how you make your money. So what I heard and what I learned is that there will be fields that have cows on them, grass-fed cows, and those fields are planted with Bahia, whatever it is. And so the cows are on there. Obviously, they don't kill the Bahia. They just eat it down. It regrows. But apparently, it takes 3 years for that to grow in. And so in order for somebody to make any kind of money with selling Bahia grass, they've got to have a secondary source of income, which in this case would be cows in the field. So it's not necessarily, the guy growing the Bahia grass doesn't necessarily own the cows, but he's growing that Bahia grass that he's going to sell in 3 or 4 years. But in the meantime, he needs to make money on his field, so he has cows there. So some farmer can let his cows go in there. They can eat the grass and be grass-fed cows, which everybody loves these days, and they can poop and they can fertilize and all that. In that field, it takes that 3 or 4 years, and then you can harvest it off and sell it as sod. So apparently the sod growers around here, they all know guys that do that, and they'll have, 4 or 5 of these partners in line because they just rotate them. This year, Johnny's ready. This year, Susie's ready. This year, Frank is ready, and they get their Bahia that way. They kind of contract it out years ahead. So that's very interesting to me. I wonder now with these laws coming in where Bahia grass is considered to be one of these water smart plants. I've always had this, I've said this before, is I really want to make Bahia grass great. I like Bahia grass. The Bahia grass I've worked with, I love it. It's a great barefoot grass. If you fertilize it enough, it gets really nice and thick. If you keep it watered, it doesn't go down to the ground and turn brown and thin out, but it never dies. If you guys remember earlier this year, in the spring, I did a video where we were in a drought this spring. We are definitely not in a drought now, my friends. After this hurricane, 19 inches of water. But prior to that, in the spring of this year, we were in a verified drought, and I showed some public common areas where I live of Bahia grass that was flat, down to the ground brown, maybe little yellow, a little bit of yellow still sticking up. And as soon as we got like 2 or 3 days of rain, boop, back to green again. Now, it didn't get super thick because it hasn't been fed. It hasn't been fertilized. We have those communist blackouts I keep talking about here in Florida. But it's nice. It looks good. It looks decent. Doesn't look as good as it could be if it was pushed with nitrogen, but then again, no grass does. But it looks a lot better. So that's why Bahia grass is considered to be one of these that's acceptable to the nature type folks because of the fact that it can go with that less water. So less inputs, I guess. So that's pretty interesting that I learned more about Bahia grass and maybe why it isn't looked at as this great, wonderful grass, even though I do have a goal to make it great. And actually working now on an agreement that would open me up to, it would triple the amount of content that I'm able to do. One of the challenges I have is I have a 8,000 square foot lawn, and there's only so much I can do there year after year, right? I've told you guys I'm like a high school teacher where I teach the same subject every year, and I try to do my best to make it exciting every year by changing it up a little bit. And I can do that. But boy, wouldn't it be easier if my classroom got bigger and I had more lab space? That's literally what I want, more lab space. So I'm actually, and for me, the lab is to plant grass and do different stuff to it, right? And just see what happens. That's what I want to do. I want to start hammering it with some cool things and just see what happens. I want to see what happens if we follow the University of Florida guidelines, which are super low nitrogen. I think if you talk to University of Florida folks, they would want you doing 0 inputs if you could. I'm pretty sure. So that's one extreme. And then there's my extreme, the other side. I like the bodybuilder status. I like to hammer it with nitrogen and puff it up and get it as thick as possible, like a bodybuilder, right? Nobody says that bodybuilders are necessarily the most healthy individuals in the world, but that's okay. There's still a lot of people that do it, and I like to body build my lawn, especially because I know grass will grow back. And so if I push it too hard and something happens, it's fine. Now, I can't because of these laws we have and stuff. But again, when I get to my little proving ground here, when I get to my little spot where I can do experiments, maybe I will find that the University of Florida is better. I don't know. I don't have any space to do these tests, right? And then we have this compost, right? And these bugs in the bag. And there's a lot of new things I want to test and have fun with, and it'll just make great content. And I'm very close to making an agreement to be able to do that. So hopefully you guys will stick around for that. Hopefully it'll rejuvenate some of the channel. And I still love doing the videos and stuff, but you have to understand it gets old trying to pick camera angles in the same lawn all the time. Now, again, I have the Freedom Factory, and that's great, but that's a whole nother thing. I don't really own that, so I can't keep equipment out there. So every time I go out there, it's a little bit of a setup. So it's a lot of prep to be able to get out there to film and do everything I need to do. And then, that's that they're doing filming out there. So I need to be cognizant of that too. And it is what it is. It's a great place to do some work. And I'm going to keep working there and doing what I do, but it's not what I need. I need somewhere that I can really do some long-term kind of stuff and have fun with. So all right, let's go now to a question I found in our Facebook group. And by the way, you can join the Facebook group. All you got to do is go on Facebook and search Lawn Care Nut Group and look for the one, because there's a bunch of different ones, but look for the one that has my shoes, my New Balance shoes with my LCN logo at the top. That's my official group. It's a private group, but everybody's free to join, so Welcome to see you there. So Rich is wanting to help out a friend here, and he says, longtime listener, first-time caller, trying to help a buddy out. Thoughts, grubs or disease or something else. Grass type unknown, location Connecticut, non-irrigated lawn. And what I'm looking at is, and if you're on YouTube, you can see a picture of it. I'll put it on the screen. But it's a single picture, and what I am looking at is, it's a cool season lawn for sure, and I'm looking at an area. I'm going to say that to the left of the picture goes out to the street. I'm looking across the lawn, so I can't see their house. So I'm looking across their lawn, and to the left goes out to the street, and to the right goes up to where their house is. So on the right, I can see a little bit of their landscaping sticking out, and then to the left, I can see that goes down to the road. So I'm seeing a strip of their lawn straight across, and it's up closer to the house, and it's all flat and definitely dead, but it's flat, and that's a key. It's extremely flat. There are some tufts of still living grass scattered throughout, but for the most part, I don't want to say it's a straight line, but it's definitely, it's a clear area that has died. So now, to the left of it, where the lawn is still alive, it also doesn't look that great. It looks like to the left is going to end up like the right. Now, I'll tell you that I'm going to tell you all the different things it could be. And Rich is smart here. He's not trying to tell us what it is. He's trying to say, here's some thoughts I had, just taking a quick look at it. Is it grubs? Maybe he had disease, something else. He also mentions non-irrigated lawn. He thought to ask about that, so he thinks it could be, he's thinking it could be just from heat, because as I can see the lawn next door to this one, and it's green and looks great. So there's a couple things. I came upon a lawn once when I was working for the old True Green Chem Lawn over by there, and this one was in Indiana. Where was that? Was that Schererville? No, I think it was Portage. But I went up to the lawn, and it looked very much like this, except for the burn spots in this picture that Rich put up here are tan, brown, maybe a little bit of an orangey tinge, but not much. But this lawn that I came on when I was working at True Green, the dead areas that looked a lot like this were yellow and orange, a lot of yellow. So it was still the same flat, same dead, but it was more of a yellowy color. And what that ended up being, I could see that somebody had sprayed a non-selective herbicide into the beds. Now, the reason I say non-selective, this was about that I'm talking about here, this True Green interaction I had in Portage, Indiana. This would have been 2010, so 14 years ago. And so what the guy used was Roundup, because what I did is I ended up going into his garage and seeing the Roundup concentrate, and he actually had spills of it everywhere because he had sprayed it like the week before. So all of his stuff was still sitting out. He didn't clean it up. It was all just sitting out on the floor where I could see he mixed it. And again, I don't know what the formulation of Roundup was 14 years ago. It's changed drastically since all the lawsuits and stuff, which were over glyphosate, not Roundup, just so you all know. The problem, or these lawsuits about cancer and all this, they're not about Roundup. Roundup's just a brand name. They're about glyphosate, the active ingredient. Glyphosate as an active ingredient is in many, many things, not just Roundup. It's in a lot of stuff. Now, Roundup is now, that brand is owned by Scott's, and they've distanced themselves, understandably, from glyphosate. So they use other things in Roundup now. There's multiple formulations. In fact, I've started doing some content on that because I get asked so often about it, because there is a Roundup that I recommend for lawns. It's called Roundup for Lawns. And that's it can get confusing to people when they see Roundup at the store. So the long and the short of it is I don't know, I like to ramble about stuff sometimes, is that I went into this dude's garage and I saw that he had this Roundup laid out all over the place. And so I asked him, did you spray any stuff? He goes, yeah, up there in the beds. And he's showing me, and I can see up in his beds where there's a whole bunch of weeds that are dead. And then he had coated his sidewalks. He had paver sidewalks, and he had coated, those were all coated. You see all the dead weeds there. Some of the plants in the flower beds were dying too, because he said he was trying to redo all the flower beds. Well, either way, what happened was rain came and washed the whatever was in that Roundup out of the beds and into the lawn. Now, here's the thing about that. This is why I wanted to caveat by saying this was 14 years ago. I don't know what the formulation was back then, because Scott's didn't own it back then. Someone, I think, did Bayer own it maybe? I don't know what the formulations were, because glyphosate, okay, actually binds quickly to soil, and it doesn't really hang around for more than a day. I think it's like I think there's what's called a half-life, and somebody can quote me on this. I think it's 24 to 48 hours, and it's gone. Obviously, unless it gets into a plant, then it's systemically working its way down. But if it's just left in the environment, I think it's gone pretty quick. That's why you can spray glyphosate right up to the edge of plants, and it won't hurt them. Because if it's, and that's the other thing, it binds with soil. Something about the chemical makeup of glyphosate is if it does soak down into the soil, because you spray it on the weeds on top, right? But some will hit the surrounding rocks or whatever bedding material you have, mulch. And as water hits it, if it comes in contact with soil, it immediately binds to the soil and it won't move. This is why glyphosate works so well, and why some of the cancer claims being a little overblown is bad for the industry, because glyphosate is a very useful tool. It is not the number one first reached for tool, but it is a tool that can be used in situations where other things can't. Either way, back to it. I don't know what the formulation was 14 years ago. More than likely, though, it had glyphosate in it, but maybe something else. And whatever that something else was did not bind in soil, did not hang around, and washed out into this dude's lawn. And it was a sloped lawn. His lawn sloped. The house was up on a hill. It sloped down. And there were multiple trails that went down through the yard where you could see the water had washed the chem. And I wish there was smartphones back then. I mean, I guess there was. I didn't have one. I wish I would have taken a picture of it, because, man, it was wild. So thinking back on that, this looks a little bit like that. So one of the questions I would have asked the homeowner is, did you spray anything in the beds? Now, and this looks like it might even have a little slope. The first thing I'd ask actually is, where does water flow across the property? Sometimes it looks a little bit like water might have flowed through there. But then I'd also ask, have you sprayed anything in the beds or on your driveway? Have you sprayed anything on your roof for mildew that may have washed down? I always ask those kind of questions when I see a completely flat, dead lawn. Because you have to understand, a lawn can die from disease, but it'll stay standing up, right? It's just brown. It's just dead, but it stays standing up. But for it to go totally flat, that takes time, man, for it to flatten down like that. So, I don't know. Just wondering, just interesting thoughts. Obviously, Rich said, what about grubs? And guys, this is how I play detective. So I'm just helping you all out. If you have brown spots, these are some of the things I go through. I don't go through the Roundup idea or the glyphosate idea too often, but this just reminds me of that one story. So I figured I'd mention it. But Rich mentioned grubs. Grubs, definitely grub damage can look like this. It definitely can. However, I still think it's a little early. August 16th. For Connecticut, it seems like that might be a little early if the grubs, it does. But I would still not rule it out. I would still go out and dig for sure. It's the first thing you should do. When you're approaching any kind of brown lawn, just go out there and stick your face down. Just dig and see what you find. It's not always for grubs. You just never know until when you're looking at something from 5'8" like me, or the rest of you guys that are all over 6 foot. You all got the 6'6" going on. You're looking down from 6 foot. You're not going to see the same as when you get down there and you're 6 inches down and you're parting the waters, you're ripping things up, you're smelling. Does it smell rotten? Is it wet? Is it super dry? Is the soil crumbling? There's a lot of things that you can learn by getting down in there. And I'm sure Rich will do that, right? But grubs would be for sure. The way you find grubs is you're not going to typically find them in the middle of the brown. Where you're going to find the grubs is on the edges where the brown is meeting the green, because they're migrating and moving because they're feeding on live roots, right? Now, you'll still find some under the brown a lot of times if you have a really bad infestation, but you want to look around the edges. So I would definitely do that. Sod webworm damage can look like this too. I mean, but typically sod webworm damage, the grass blades are kind of still standing there, but if you run your hand across it, then they'll come out. But maybe over time they do go flat. So this could be sod webworm too. The only way you would know that is if you walked through it now and you saw the moths. Moths don't do the damage, but that would indicate that the larva had hatched recently. That's why you have all this damage. And now, because they continue going, they'll have, in Connecticut, it's not that far north, they'll have maybe 2 cycles a year, maybe 3 even. In Florida, they're pretty much year round. And then again, non-irrigated for sure. So some other things you got to ask the homeowner is, how long has this been like this? Oh, another thing this could be. Another thing, man, now that I think about it, this could have been Poa annua grew in and was looking great in spring, but then it got a hot summer and poa annua all died, and that's what you're seeing here. Could have been like that. In that case, I would ask the homeowner, does this happen every year? Does this look like this every year in August, but does it look good in spring? If so, that's like an annual grass that's growing then, like a poa annua. I would also ask them, does it start to grow back in the fall if you don't do anything to it? That's another one for the poa annua. So pretty Japanese maple they have there too. Look like some of those Stella de Oro daylilies. It looks like a really nice neighborhood, mature trees. So one thing's for sure, and this is what I wanted to get to, no matter what, because you're not going to maybe be able to find out. This is somebody that's not a lawn care nut. Rich is helping the guy out. So this guy's probably just entering his lawn care journey. Obviously, he should join our community because he can get some help there. But who cares about the past at this point? Once you've dug and looked and confirmed it's not grubs, and I don't really care then at that point. I don't care that I have to know what caused this. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to set my sights on fixing it. And I want to reiterate to you all, I made a video in 2021, and it's called Growing Grass, Seeding a Lawn in Fall, Fertilizer with Results, No Machines Required. I'll link it if you're looking on YouTube. I'll link it in the show notes, too. It's really I've done a lot of fall aeration and overseed videos over the years. Believe it or not, you guys think, yeah, he lives in Florida now for all these years, but every other year, I'll fly somewhere that has cool season grass and do an aeration overseeding. When I was doing them with Jake the Lawn Kid for years, we were doing mechanical aeration overseeds, and I'll show you before and afters in these lawns. They transform. It's crazy. That's why you guys with cool season, you YouTubers that do cool season, I'd be finding the worst lawns in my neighborhood, and I'd rehab like 5 of them every year to show people how easy it is. That's the content I'd be doing. But I fly up every other year and do one. Last year we did ones in Northwest Indiana with my friend Luke and Jeannie across the street, and we did rehabs. We made those last all year. This year I haven't really done a lot that way, but when I did them with Jake years ago, we do mechanical aeration. But my favorite one I've ever done as far as results go was in North Dakota with Anthony, who is our SEO, SEM marketing guru here at Yard Mastery. And he's in North Dakota, and we went up there in 2021, and we did it on August 17th and 18th of 2021, so mid-August. Now, this is North Dakota, right? So they're going to get colder sooner, so that's pretty much, we were probably a little early even, but we had to do that because of filming, because we had it all published, Actually, we filmed it on 8/17, and we had it published by September 5th because we got 18 days of results. But the lawn had come out of a drought, so it was dead. It wasn't flat like the one we were just talking about. It was still standing up, all the grass, but it was definitely dormant and looking dead. And it looked horrible. And within 18 days, we had it double dark green. It just looked beautiful and thick, doing liquid aeration and overseed and hydrotane and mesotrione and pretty much the same stuff that's in our starter pack. We have a starter pack now that's for 5. You could stretch it to 6,000 square feet lawns. And it's got everything you need. It's got starter fert in there. It's got hydrotane. It's got liquid aeration. Might even have RGS. But for sure, it has mesotrione. And so it's everything you would need. It's everything we used in this video. You just have to buy your seed separate, which, by the way, we have some really good seed this year. The Double Dark Blend seed, which we've had, which is the Kentucky Bluegrass, 80% rye, 20% Kentucky Blue. They came out with a turf-type tall fescue blend now that's really nice in the Double Dark brand. So that's something that's new out there. But you get your seed, you put it down, you can see what we did in that lawn in 18 days. Now, what did we have working for us? And that's what I'm saying to back to this Rich's buddy here. The future is this. Follow this video. Growing Grass, Seeding a Lawn in Fall, Fertilizer with Results by the Lawn Care Nut. Just do Growing Grass, Seeding a Lawn in Fall and search that. And what you will find is there's not a lot of work. It's 1 day of work. It's a lot of fertilizer and a lot of seed and all that stuff. But what we really have working for us is we have our natural growth spurt. In cool season lawns, in about 3 or 4 weeks, everything is going to change. I don't care if it's disease or not. I mentioned that very early in this podcast. Everything's going to change. And you're going to end up having a nice temperature. You're going to get some more rain. You're going to have a little more overcast, so it's going to be mild. And that is perfect for cool season grass. And all of your cool season grasses are going to start to wake back up from dormancy. And some of the ones that were diseased, the disease will stop pressuring them and they will start to grow back because only the leaf part was damaged and not the crown and not the root. So they start to grow back, right? That dollar spot that looks terrible now starts to grow back. Well, what can you do to encourage that? Is we've got this natural growth spurt, this natural healing that the lawn is going to do. So you hammer it with that starter fert, because starter fert fixes everything. Throw some seed in the overall, but throw it heavier in the thin spot. This is exactly what we did in this video. And then water. You got to commit to the watering. If you do that, it's going to come back. You got a natural growth push on the existing grass, and you have mild temperatures and mild weather. And now you're going to start watering. It's what you need to do. The fertilizer and the rest of the stuff is just to blow it up faster. The hydrotain is there if you have a mistake or to keep the water wetter. The liquid aeration is there to soften the soil so the roots of the existing grass and the roots of the growing grass can dive down. It all works together, and you follow it up with another starter fertilizer 15 days later, and then as soon as you get that grown and you've mowed it twice, start hammering it with flagship every 4 weeks until you get snow. Push it like a bodybuilder. Let's go. Let's get it going. And watch that video and look at the results we got. And by the way, Anthony's lawn still looks that good this year. To this day, it looks beautiful. He's been sticking with the same thing. He mostly uses flagship because that's his favorite, which I get. And he's looking good. So I just wanted to encourage you all that, yeah, you're going to have some of these lawns where you're just like, man, I was doing okay in spring, and then I got busy with summer. All of a sudden I came home, I mowed my lawn and noticed, holy shit, like most of it's dead or a big part of it's diseased. I'm seeing that quite a bit. And I understand, y'all, kids are back to school now. So you guys are getting back into the lawn and you're like, geez, I didn't realize my freaking lawn got this bad. Totally understand. You're not alone. I'm saying it. So that means if you're thinking it, others are thinking it, and it's enough that I'm seeing it and I'm saying it. Okay. And so now that you're getting back into it, just know this, all can be forgiven. The best thing about cool season lawns is all can be forgiven because you're going to aerate, overseed, bomb it with fertilizer, and then winter's going to stop everything else. Winter's going to be like your reset button. And next spring, you're good because you launched that bodybuilder, right? And now you're going to put him in like Han Solo. You're going to put him into cryo freeze, and you're going to wake him up in spring, and you're going to start injecting him again with nitrogen. Thick, baby. Right? You can always grow more grass, and that's what you got to get excited about here in the fall. Get back into the lawn, aeration, overseed. It's one day. I recommend you rent the aerator. I really do. I think it makes the beer taste better. It makes your Facebook post look sexier because you went through with it. Come on. But yeah, stirring up that dirt's good. Get that fert and all that shit down in there. So, all right. I appreciate y'all listening this week. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.